Well, I think there are challenges from the standpoint of the transit agencies and authorities being so used to operating bus and rail or contracting bus and rail, and maybe being a little bit intimidated in terms of the transition from just fixed guideway bus and rail systems to full-fledged point-to-point private systems, car sharing, ride sharing, or TNCs as we call them, transportation network companies, new technologies in the form of apps and geolocation that's really changing the way customers expect service. And so I think that there's really a huge opportunity for transit agencies to play a central role and not just be on the periphery as a transit agency, but be the central coordinator of all of these services by coordinating payments, by in their app, including all of these other services, by marketing these services, co-marketing, and potentially even taking a revenue cut when there's a trip that originates or the destination is at a transit stop. So I think it's a huge opportunity, but like anything, you have to grab that opportunity and you got to run with it. And if we bury our heads in the sand and we pretend like this isn't happening, unfortunately transit could be on the losing end of this proposition, which is the biggest change, the biggest shift or transition to, this is the biggest transition that we're going to see in transportation in the next 50 to 100 years. The advent of autonomous vehicles, the new business models, connected vehicles, point-to-point transportation. Now, the backbone of these systems is the fixed guideway, light rail, tram, bus rapid transit, that high-quality, high-capacity service that transit operators provide today. However, they could risk less funding, less relevance in the customer's eyes, therefore less relevance in the political establishment's eyes if they aren't playing a role in the entire system and continue to just focus on the core things that they do. Now the beauty is you can see here at this convention that there are all these great private companies and they want to provide services in partnership with these transit authorities, transportation departments. And so one of the things I talked about today is the importance of being open-minded, engaging, having these companies come in, seeing how they can benefit you, and guess what? It may cost next to nothing when you look at the return on investment or potential revenue sharing. And so it's really great to be here. There's a lot of energy, a lot of great companies, a lot of great governments. I talked to people from Singapore, Japan, all over Germany and Europe. So it's very exciting. I'm really enjoying it. Well, I just wrote a book actually called Startup City, and a lot of it is about that. It's about operating government at startup speed with a startup business mentality, focusing on the customer first and foremost, focusing on return on investment, cost benefit, some of the basic things that we do in business that government sometimes pushes to the background in favor of politics or protecting their bureaucracy. And in the future, that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable now because the customer wants what they want when they want it. And it's our job in government or in the private sector to provide it. And so a lot of what I talk about in my book is public and private coming together for the greater good. That means the private sector's got to focus a little bit more on a triple bottom line approach to business. People, planet, profit. It means that the public sector needs to focus more on the customer and return on investment. But if we do that, it's easier for the two sides to come together and provide the service together, playing to their strengths. And you see it in Japan, you see it in lots of places. I think we need to do a better job, particularly in the USA, of taking that approach. I think it's going to be a big mesh. And what I mean is you're going to have that backbone transit, the subway, the light rail, the bus rapid transit, core networks that carry a lot of people, particularly at rush hour and so on. But then there's the connective tissue that you need, the walking, the biking, the active transportation that is key to a city being navigatable, but also key to it having more value. The cities, I think, that close themselves to single occupancy automobiles in their core are going to be more successful and more vibrant economically. And so I see a system where you have a lot of these services being offered via the transit service. or enabled by the transit service. I certainly hope so, because if not, there's the potential that these services could, where there's weaker transit, like a lot of places in the US, displace transit. And I would hate to see that, because transit is not just about moving people, it's about organizing ourselves, right? And organizing functionally around the grocery store and the doctor and the school, and bringing everything physically together in one place around those nodes. And so if we lose transit, we actually can lose our way of life in cities, which is, would be devastating.